Here is Malawi, a country where we recently were commissioned by Food for Peace to look and evaluate a program that they had had supporting villages over 5 years, where a whole variety of nutritional interventions, local self-help group interventions, kind of a whole suite of efforts there. And of course, we were commissioned to do this work after it had already been completed. And finding a good comparison group to the places where Food for Peace had worked would naturally require baseline data, right? Looking at places, of course, and making sure they were comparable before any interventions had been carried out. Now, Food for Peace hadn't commissioned any baseline survey work. They'd only commissioned work in the places where they were already actually carrying out interventions. So what to do? Well, one of the most powerful things I think about the geospatial data is that it lets us go back and recover baselines. That is, in some ways, go back retrospectively in time and answer these questions. How does it do that? Well, remember the demographic and health surveys I mentioned that were geospatially tagged, right? There were individual locations, villages where surveys were carried out. We can use these data to predict what conditions were likely even in nearby places that weren't themselves surveyed. So on this map, we've got the treated places, that is the Food for Peace intervention villages are in the dark blue. And then we've drawn a series of comparison or control, if you will, villages in the lighter blue, the turquoise. And we've drawn those on the basis of a heat map, essentially, that we've created in the background. So that heat map is a predictor of child stunting rates. That is the likelihood that a particular child is really small for their age, largely based on nutrition. And we did that with this demographic and health surveys. We were able to predict which places were likely to be similar to the intervention locations, even though, again, no surveys were actually carried out in those particular places going that far back in time. And using that data, we were able to then go and look for the treatment impacts with a valid counterfactual, valid comparison.